There are moments in our lives when words feel too small, too fragile to carry the weight of what we see. And yet, silence is heavier. Silence becomes complicity. So tonight, I will not stay silent. I have seen images from Gaza that will never leave me. Children, their faces covered in dust, their eyes wide, not with wonder but with terror. Mothers cradling their little ones, praying that somehow the walls will hold. Fathers carrying their children not to school but to graves. This is not a distant tragedy. It is a human wound, and it bleeds through all of us. We can argue politics, we can debate history, we can hide behind the excuses of power, but strip it all away, and what is left is a child, a boy who will never play football again, a girl who will never laugh in a classroom, a family ripped apart not because of who they are, but because we have allowed the machinery of violence to grind them down. What breaks me most is knowing that we are capable of stopping this. We are capable of compassion, of courage, of standing between the innocent and the cruelty of war, and yet too often the world chooses the comfort of silence. I cannot, not anymore. Every parent knows the sound of their child's laughter. Every parent knows the fear of their child's tears. That bond does not stop at borders. It does not vanish with language. It does not die because someone else calls them an enemy. They are us, and we are them. So I am asking, not as a politician, not as a scholar, not as someone who pretends to hold all the answers. I am asking as a human being, let us not look away. Let us demand an end to this horror. Let us remember that to be human is to protect life, not destroy. One day, I want the children of Gaza to speak not of bombs, but of books, not of fear, but of freedom, not of graves, but of gardens. That day will only come if we have the courage to say no more. And so I break, but I do not give up, because compassion is not weakness. It is the only strength that can change this world. And if enough of us dare to hold on to it, then maybe, just maybe, the children of Gaza will have a tomorrow worth living. There comes a time when a person must confront the weight of responsibility, not because it is easy, not because it is convenient, but because it is right. To see suffering and turn away is to deny our own humanity. To witness the destruction of lives, especially the lives of children, and remain unmoved is to surrender the very core of what makes us human. We are not measured by what we achieve in comfort, but by what we do when faced with the unbearable truth of injustice. The moral responsibility that falls on us now is not abstract. It is not a distant idea belonging to someone else. It is immediate, it is urgent, and it belongs to every single one of us. When children cry out under the thunder of bombs, when families huddle together in fear, the question is not what governments will do or what leaders will say. The question is, what will we tolerate and what will we refuse to accept? To stay silent is to give permission. To look away is to stand on the side of cruelty, and that is a burden that will follow us into history, into memory, into the conscience of our children when they ask us, what did you do when Gaza burned? What did you do when they needed a voice? Responsibility is not a choice reserved for the powerful. It belongs to all of us, in the words we speak, in the pressure we place, in the courage we show to confront even those we fear disappointing. It is carried in the protests that rise up in city streets, in the conversations around our tables, in the refusal to let propaganda and politics erase human lives. We cannot pretend this is someone else's tragedy. We cannot hide behind the illusion that this blood is not on our hands if we do nothing. Responsibility demands action. Responsibility demands truth. Responsibility demands that we, with whatever strength we have, stand against the destruction of the innocent. Because if we fail to shoulder this duty now, then all the lessons of history, all the words we have spoken about justice, freedom, and dignity will crumble into dust. Our silence will testify against us, and the world will remember not only the bombs that fell, but the voices that did not rise to stop them. The children of Gaza are not statistics. They are not headlines to be skimmed and forgotten. They are living, breathing souls who deserve the same laughter, the same warmth, the same dreams as every child everywhere. And yet their lives are marked not by play or learning, but by the constant shadow of war. Imagine a child who should be chasing a ball through the streets, forced instead to run from the sound of sirens. Imagine a girl who should be coloring pictures in a classroom, clutching instead to her mother as the walls around her shake. These are not images from a distant land that mean nothing to us. These are echoes of our own children, our own families, reflected back in pain and fear. Every time a bomb falls, it robs not only a child's present, but their future. A future where they might have been a doctor, an artist, a teacher, or a poet. It extinguishes possibilities before they can even take shape. And this is the greatest crime, that entire generations are being denied the chance to grow into their own potential, denied the simple right to live without terror. When we look into their eyes, wide with fear, we are looking into the very heart of innocence. And when that innocence is shattered, it is not just Gaza that suffers. The whole world becomes poorer. Children do not choose sides. They do not carry blame. They inherit nothing but the consequences of choices made by those with power. And yet, time and time again, they are the first to pay the price. To see a child's life reduced to rubble is to see the failure of every principle we claim to stand for as human beings. If there is any hope left for us, it lies in our ability to protect them, to raise our voices for them, to demand that their right to live, to laugh, to dream be defended with the same ferocity that war is waged against them. Because if we cannot save the children of Gaza, then we will have lost more than a generation. We will have lost ourselves. Silence is not neutral. It is not a quiet refuge where we can hide from the pain of others. Silence, in times like these, becomes an accomplice. It wraps itself around cruelty and allows it to thrive. Every moment we choose not to speak, every time we avert our eyes, we give permission for the violence to continue. The bombs fall, the children cry, the graves are dug, and silence echoes louder than any voice raised against it. There is a terrible comfort in silence. It asks nothing of us. It spares us from conflict, from uncomfortable truths, from the weight of responsibility. But what does that comfort cost? It costs the lives of the innocent. It costs our humanity. History has shown us that when voices go quiet in the face of injustice, atrocities multiply. The silence of the world has never saved the oppressed. It has only emboldened the oppressor. We tell ourselves that we are powerless, that one voice cannot make a difference. But silence is not powerlessness. It is surrender. It is the decision to let cruelty write the story of the world without contest. And when enough of us surrender, the story ends in despair. The weight of silence crushes not only those who suffer, but those who choose to look away. Because one day the silence will demand an answer. One day our children will ask us what we did when Gaza wept, and we will have nothing to offer but excuses. To remain silent is to let innocence be destroyed without resistance. To remain silent is to trade truth for comfort. To remain silent is to abandon those who cry out for help. We must understand that our voices are weapons, not of destruction, but of defiance. To speak is to resist. To speak is to carry the weight of compassion. To speak is to refuse to let silence bury the truth of what is happening before our eyes. What binds us together is far greater than what divides us. Yet, in moments of war and suffering, that truth is often forgotten. The people of Gaza are not strangers to us. They are families who sit together at meals. They are parents who whisper lullabies to their children. They are teenagers who dream of love, of adventure, of a future filled with possibilities. Their laughter, their fears, their hopes, they mirror our own. To believe otherwise is to blind ourselves to the humanity we all share. When a child in Gaza cries out for safety, that cry is no different from the cry of a child in New York, London, or Dublin. Hunger feels the same in every stomach. Loss cuts as deeply in every heart. The humanity we share is not a choice we make. It is a fact we cannot escape. Yet somehow borders, politics, and prejudice cloud that truth. We are told to see them and us, when in reality there is only us. What happens to one child, one family, one community, ripples outward into the whole of humanity. To allow children in Gaza to grow up in rubble and fear is to weaken the very soul of the world. Because if we permit the suffering of others, we invite suffering to all. None of us live in isolation. The destruction of one people's future will in time destroy our own. Every embrace, every smile, every heartbeat in Gaza carries the same worth as those in our own homes. That is the truth that war seeks to bury, but we cannot let it. Our shared humanity demands recognition, demands empathy, demands that we see beyond labels and divisions. When we look into the eyes of a stranger and recognize ourselves, we take the first step toward ending the cycle of violence. And until we learn to act on that recognition, the world will remain wounded. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to act in spite of it. In moments of darkness, when cruelty seems too vast, when the machinery of violence feels unstoppable, courage is the only force that can break through. The call for courage is not only for those who sit in positions of power. It is for every one of us who dares to raise our voice, who dares to demand that the innocent be spared. Courage is not confined to battlefields. It lives in the hearts of ordinary people who refuse to accept the unacceptable. It takes courage to confront a world that tells us to stay quiet. It takes courage to challenge the narratives that excuse bloodshed and normalize suffering. It takes courage to stand up in rooms where silence is comfortable and say, "This is wrong." And it takes courage to look at the brokenness of the world without turning away, to let the pain of others enter our hearts, and to act as though their survival depends on us, because in truth it does. Without courage, compassion remains only a feeling. Without courage, outrage fades into whispers. Without courage, justice is nothing more than an idea. History has shown us again and again that every change, every act of liberation, every victory for dignity and humanity began when ordinary people chose to be brave. Their courage did not erase fear. It gave them the strength to face it. The people of Gaza do not need our pity. They need our courage. They need us to risk being uncomfortable, to risk being unpopular, to risk raising questions that powerful voices would rather silence. They need us to remember that the measure of our humanity is not what we feel, but what we do. Courage is contagious. One act inspires another, one voice sparks a chorus, and when enough of us find the courage to act, no force of destruction can stand against it. The call for courage is here now, and it will not wait. The only question is whether we will answer it. Hope is fragile, but it is also stubborn. It survives in the smallest places. In a child's smile, despite the ruins around them. In a mother's embrace, even as she shields her family from harm. In the simple act of neighbors sharing what little food they have left. Hope does not vanish, even in Gaza. It bends, it suffers, but it does not die. And the only force strong enough to protect and nurture that hope is compassion. Compassion is not weakness. It is the greatest strength we possess as human beings. It is the ability to see beyond our own pain, our own fear, and recognize the suffering of another as if it were our own. Compassion is the act of refusing to accept cruelty as normal, of refusing to see children as collateral, of refusing to let the world grow numb to the cries of the innocent. It is what transforms sorrow into action and despair into resolve. If there is to be a future for Gaza, for any of us, it will not be built on vengeance or destruction. It will be built on compassion. It will be built on the simple truth that every life has value, that every child deserves the chance to grow, to dream, to live free from terror. Compassion opens the door to peace because it does not ask who is right or who is wrong, but who is suffering and how we can help. When we choose compassion, we choose to break the cycle. We choose to believe that humanity is not doomed to repeat its cruelties. We choose to believe that the world can change, even if slowly, even if painfully. And in that choice, there is hope. Not a naive hope, not a distant fantasy, but a hope born from the courage to care. The children of Gaza, the families who endure, the voices that refuse to be silenced, they carry this hope within them. The question is whether we will meet their hope with our compassion, whether we will give it strength enough to grow. Because if we do, then even in the darkest hour, tomorrow can still be brighter than today. And so we arrive at the truth that can no longer be ignored. We are bound by a responsibility to speak, to act, to refuse silence in the face of suffering. We have seen the faces of Gaza's children, and in their eyes we recognize our own. We have carried the weight of silence, and we know now that it cannot protect us. It only deepens the wound. We have been reminded of the humanity we share, the thread that ties every life to every other. We have heard the call for courage, and we know that history will not remember our comfort but our choices. And we have found, even in the ashes, that compassion is still alive, and through it, hope still breathes. Let us not leave this moment unchanged. Let us not walk away and allow these words to fade like so many speeches before them. The measure of our humanity is not in what we feel tonight, but in what we do tomorrow. If we can carry forward the duty of responsibility, if we can lift our voices above the weight of silence, if we can live as though every child's life is worth defending, then maybe, just maybe, the world will bend toward justice. The people of Gaza deserve more than our sympathy. They deserve our courage, our compassion, and our relentless demand for peace. And if we find the strength to give them that, then one day the rubble will be cleared, the wounds will heal, and the children will laugh again. That day is not a dream, it is a promise, waiting for us to keep it.